When I was out at a flea market this summer, I came upon this dollhouse. The seller said she was asking $1, so I gave her $1. It was really just a shell and coming apart in places, but I like the size and shape and I thought it had potential. It seemed like this had been stored out on a porch or something. It was really dirty, smelled a little bit like mildew, so I gave everything a wipe down with vinegar. While I thought these arched windows were cute, I had in mind something a little more detailed, so it's demo day. Crunchy. I needed to replace these roof panels that were missing, so I made some templates out of cardstock and cut new pieces to fit out of plywood. The house was really barely holding together, so I went through all of the loose bits and added glue. There she is, all put back together. I went on a little bit of a shopping spree to buy some building materials. I got all new windows. These are from Alessio Miniatures. And I also got a couple packs of this birch siding, which I thought would add a lot of texture. I absolutely did not have the right attachment for this tool to open up these windows, but I was determined to not buy any tools for this project, so here we go. On the right side of the house, I added a window where there wasn't one before. And at the last minute, I decided to also cut an opening for a new door. I took the plexiglass out of the windows to stain the frames. I'm using a water-based gel stain, and this turned out to work quite well, actually. I just painted it on and then wiped off the excess with a paper towel. This stuff was like $2 a bottle, no fumes. I was very happy with it. And while I was staining the windows, I also took the time to stain all of my siding. I laid all of these out, taped them together so that they didn't scooch around, and then gave everything a coat of the same gel stain. siding boards are 3/4 inch tall, and I had to decide how much of an overlap I wanted. I ended up deciding on 3/8 inch, and so I made a little story stick that I could put anywhere on the house and have the lines exactly where they needed to be. And the idea is that when I apply each siding board, I would line up the top edge of each board with the lines I'm drawing on the house. I had purchased some 1/4 inch wooden strips and stained those to match the siding, and these are going to be my corner boards. I used hot glue to apply these, but I didn't really like how that looked, so for the rest of the siding I ended up using Gorilla Glue. Satisfying. I considered installing the siding before the windows just for the sake of ease, but after watching a few episodes of This Old House, I decided it would look much better to cut the siding to fit. I put off doing the siding for a couple of weeks because I was scared, but one day I came down with COVID and decided it was time to figure it out. Applying this siding is not terribly difficult, but it took a very long time. I have the audio turned off here because I had a movie on, and I think this took me about 2 days. Fortunately, these boards cut very easily with just craft scissors, so I didn't even have to get out my knife to work on these. It was just tedious. I used a lot of glue because I didn't want these boards popping up. And then when I had 3 or 4 boards on there, I started applying painter's tape to make sure it was stuck down while it was drying. There were a few fiddly bits where I needed to make some precise cuts around the windows. And I wish I had a better technique to share, but I just made a little tracing on some paper, transferred the shape to the board, and then did my best cutting it out with scissors. When I got up to the angled gable area, I made a template out of paper and used my story stick from before to place my lines on the paper so that I could cut against my template instead of having to cut it against the house. For the shingles, I wanted to introduce a slightly different shade of brown, so I'm using this water-based color tint, and I actually really love how this turned out. This liquid soaks into the shingle and gives it a nice, aged, weathered look. What I didn't know at the time is that this would stain my fingers brown for like 2 days. I used the same darker brown to stain some boards for the front porch, and started building that out. With all of the siding on, there were very few parts of the house that were still showing the original plywood shell. So I just cut some strips of wood, stained them all the same, and finished up the last bit of the porch so that the house was fully clad in new wood. For the porch, I combined just some small square dowels with pre-made porch railing. Placed guidelines on the roof for the shingles, but I didn't want it to look too perfect. I didn't really want straight rows of shingles, so I varied where I was placing the shingle by about 1/8 of an inch. And some of the shingles I broke into smaller pieces so that they weren't all exactly the same size rectangle. For the parts of the roof that were angled, I just cut the shingle diagonally with scissors. It took a couple tries to get a good fit. Doing the roofing was actually a lot of fun. It was way more fun than doing the siding. This was a pleasurable task. very early one morning, I finally finished shingling the roof. The top shingles, I just cut to a shorter length so that they would meet at the middle and make a peaked roof. To finish up the exterior, I added a few pieces of thin wood trim around the roof, and I still have some details that need to be added. Eventually, what I'm going to do is start working on the interior as well as get some lighting. I'll have a porch light at some point, but that is going to have to wait for another day.